We're now joined by Donnie, lead singer of Trauma. How are you today?
I'm doing great, Jay. Thank you. How's everybody out in listener land?
Oh man, we are hanging in there. You know, I always say we're built for this. You know, we operate air traffic control. You know, from our office where we can get much done. I mean, we miss going out to the shows, but other than that, you know, we don't have to work in a building with a bunch of people, and you know, so you know, can't wait for the stores to open up. But you know, there's worse scenarios.
Good use of time, right?
Yeah, absolutely. How about you guys? Are you using the time to be able to write new material?
That's exactly right. Yeah, we're really busy right now because we made the decision to record another album pretty recently, really, you know, within the last month to 6 weeks. So we've got 6 demos recorded so far, shooting for, you know, probably about 10 songs. And the demos, of course, are just for us to evaluate and get ready. We've got studio time booked for July at this point, and so, yeah, we're working pretty quickly.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah, I know it's a good time for a lot of people to woodshed. You know, get prepared. Now, I go all the way back. I was in the audience for Trauma's first shows in L.A. when you came down. I guess that was 81, was it? Beginning of 82?
Sounds right.
Yeah.
That sounds right.
Yeah, of course, Whiskey and Troubadour. I remember there was a show right next to the Whiskey. I don't know what they called that club, but I remember stepping in and seeing you guys there too. Any recollections of those first visits to L.A.?
Yeah, pretty exciting, really, because Trauma got off the launch pad pretty quickly. We had, by the time I was the last member to join, and from the time that I met the other members of the band till we were out playing a show, I think was maybe a month. It might have been like five weeks, but it was pretty quick. And, you know, that was an original band, so we started playing shows for the Stone family, which was Keystone Berkeley, the Stone on Broadway in San Francisco, and then the Keystone Palo Alto, and clubs like that. And it was really exciting because it was all done pretty quickly. And we had a manager who was he was a mover and a shaker, let's say, kind of controversial, but he really got things happening for us, and so he was booking, you know, he got us down to the Whiskey and the Troubadour, and we did a bunch of recordings at studios I can't even remember now. He also built a studio in Concord, California, where we learned to actually record. It was, I think, the first recording experience for any of us, and we literally, a few weekends, slept on the floor of the studio in sleeping bags so that we could take advantage of the free weekend time at the studio. But to answer your question, I remember the Whiskey show pretty well, and the trip down and back, and yeah, kind of exciting.
Yeah, no doubt. Obviously, you're on a stage where, you know, legends, Zeppelin, AC/DC, Judas Priest had played at that point. You know,
Unbelievable place, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, we played the Whiskey in spring about 2 years ago. We went down and played with the new lineup, the lineup that, you know, I say the new lineup because, you know, we've had a few guitar players come in and out of it, but this has been a pretty stable lineup for about 3 years now. And we played down there, and it was really great to be back down on the Sunset Strip and all of that. And, you know, we also played the Viper Room about a week later. So playing in L.A. is just flat out fun. You know, that whole vibe is cool.
Well, who else is original member? Chris is in the band?
Yeah, Chris is in the band, and then we've got Greg Christian, who used to play in Testament, and also knew our entire history because, you know, he was seeing some of our early shows. And then we've got a guitarist from the Sacramento area, Joe Frolub, who did a stint with Danzig quite a while ago. I'm going to say about 10 years ago. And then we've got Steve Ribello, and Steve toured Europe a couple of times with Chuck Billy and Steve Souza from Exodus, and in a band called Dublin Death Patrol.
Wow. Well, I know it's a solid lineup. You guys got some great shows and some new recordings coming up. And of course, the band is well known for being Cliff Burton, you know, from Metallica's first band. Tell us any recollections of meeting, you know, Cliff and seeing what he was delivering on stage with Early Trauma.
Yeah, okay. So I did a very, very quick stint in an original band from the Bay Area. I came from the East Coast originally, and hustled myself into a band to get my feet wet in the Bay Area. And after, I don't know, a few months of doing shows here and there with that band, I was playing one night in a club down in Hayward, California, which is just south of Oakland. And two guys in the audience were original founding members of Trauma. And that was Mike Overton, and I think Tiger, George Lady, but his nickname is Tiger. And they approached me after the show and started telling me about this heavy metal band they had. And you know, I took to the guys. I thought they were really, really cool guys, and they asked me if, you know, I'd be interested in jamming with them. And I was. And so a few days later, I was in my apartment in Oakland, and you know, we had planned to meet the other guys, and so the four guys come, you know, walking down the hall in my apartment building, and come walking in the room, and of course I'd met two of them earlier, and then the drummer Dennis comes in, and then, you know, this tall, skinny, red-headed guy comes walking in last, and, you know, he's got the trademark denim jacket and the bell-bottom pants and all that, and they were all just really cool guys and very interested in having, you know, getting to know me. And so my first impression of all of them was, I wanted things to work out with them. And specifically to your question, I thought, cool. I thought that Cliff was very cool, very, you know, good sense of humor, but very serious about music. And so within a week, we were jamming. You know, it would have been my tryout, if you will, and just everything clicked. And you know, it was obvious that Cliff was a really good bass player, and he just got better because he was so serious at it. He practiced, you know, hours a day, and you know, that was his life. He knew that he wanted to be, or that he would be, a professional musician, and that was everything to him.
Yeah, well, those were certainly exciting days, and I know you guys were on the Metal Massacre II album from Metal Blade, right, which a lot of people like Metallica got their start on. What was it like to hear your first song on a record?
Very cool, because if I remember right, that was the first song we ever recorded, and probably the first song any of us recorded in a studio. In fact, our manager's studio hadn't been completely built yet, so we went over to a studio in Sausalito, California, and it was like right next to a marina. So, we're like from the blue collar East Bay, if you will. I don't know if you know Bay Area geography.
Yeah, of course.
But we're, did you say yeah?
Yes, I do.
Okay, all right. So, so anyway, so we're from, the East Bay, and we go over to very Tony, sophisticated, affluent Sausalito, and I just was kind of amused that this recording studio is like pretty much what you might call almost on a dock, and next to it is a marina with all these incredible sailboats and all this affluence and everything, and we're these long-haired metal dudes. It was just a really interesting juxtaposition. But at any rate, that was the first song we ever recorded, and so that was kind of special that that our manager got that with Brian Slagle's company to go into a collection, which is, of course, Metal Massacre II, as you said.
Yeah. Well, I know those were exciting times. We were down here in L.A. in the thick of all the bands here, and of course the Bay Area had thrash metal and all that, booming, and exciting times. Now, obviously, as you guys have evolved over the years, what has kept you guys inspired and still wanting to do this?
But it was also a song that
well, for me personally, and I think Chris would agree with this, the fact that our first incarnation of Trauma didn't last long enough. The band pretty much imploded after we released the Scratch and Scream album, and different members of the band moved out of the Bay Area, and different members had some personal challenges in life, and as you know, at that time, Jay, there's no internet, and
Sure.
We really didn't know that anybody outside of the Bay Area or the few shows we did down in L.A. that there was any interest in the band, really. We got, a few fan letters, snail mail from Europe, but nothing substantial. And I think a few members got discouraged, and as I said, some challenges in life. And so the band imploded. And for me, that was not a very satisfying end to, what I thought had greater potential. And I know that Chris would share that. One reason why it took so long to get back together again was Chris got very active on the LA music scene, did like a number of U.S. tours with a band called St. Elmo's Fire, and went to Switzerland and played with a couple of members of Crocus in a band over there, and he just did a lot of different bands, all of which had good potential. But the point is, he and I, were never in the same place or space to work together for a long time.
Yeah. Well, now, obviously, Testament was another band that, stuck with it. Certainly one of the forefathers of thrash metal, right under the big three there. What was it like to get Greg Christian, in the band, and what does he bring to Trauma?
Very cool to get Greg. He, for one thing, Greg has remarked, several times that, he felt like that was an ideal band for him to be in because he knew the history. He'd seen some of our early shows. He knew Cliff, and really, thought, obviously, Cliff was a great bass player, and it just felt really good to Greg and to us. He's a world traveler. He's very well known in his own right, and musically, he's a very, very good bass player. He has quite a following of fans who think he's a great and a top bass player in the world, in the world of metal. So it just seemed so natural, and we had some mutual friends that had been behind the scene kind of working on that for months, to make that happen. So when it finally did, it just felt, really good, like the lineup was complete.
Sure. Well, I know, when Cliff joined Metallica, they weren't the Metallica we know today. They were still a up and coming band, in the middle of the bill at the Whiskey, and even in their hometown of LA. But, once they moved to the Bay Area and became the Metallica we know today, what was it like to watch, Cliff's ascension, in the rock world with those Trauma roots?
Yeah, we remained friends. Mike Overton and I saw Cliff on many occasions after he left Trauma, and so it was fun talking to him about what it was like those early days with Metallica, because they struggled as well. It was, according to Cliff, far from glamorous, but exciting for them. So I think, to this day, because I've seen all the former members of the band. In fact, we have seen each other several times at an annual memorial that's held for Cliff on the anniversary of his birth date, and I know everybody's very proud of the legacy he left, and he's such a likable person that one would wish him the best, and of course wish him well. And the members, people who knew Cliff personally miss him, and of course the world of music misses him.
Well, he was always proud of his days in Trauma, and wasn't afraid to let people know where he came from, and so it keeps the legacy of Trauma alive. Tell us about the songs coming together for this new album. How do you think it will be, a little different, and what do you think the statement will be that you're making this time?
Well, let's see. There'll be the usual social commentaries. I personally see metal as being protest music. I think most people do. I know there's the fantasy aspect of it, the sword and sorcery, type music, which is wonderful itself. But also, I really do think it's a protest style of music. So there's social commentary.
It's music of the streets.
Themes. Go ahead, Jay.
Yeah, I was saying it's music of the streets. It's pure. It's from the people for the people.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think people are proud. Metal fans are proud not to be, just mindless followers of whatever musical style the media decides, people need to buy. But more individuals, I think. And although there are so many similarities and kind of a unspoken fellowship among metal fans, they're usually very interesting individuals.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I heard rumors of some European dates with Ross the Boss from MANOWAR and Dictators. Do you think that's going to happen?
Really wanted to. The tour is booked. It's just a matter if the host nations will allow them to proceed. So the dates start in mid-November and end in around December 10th. But yeah, I mean there are dates in venues in cities booked. Again, let's see if it happens. Our manager is feeling optimistic about it. Everybody's been warned about some dreaded, second wave. And of course, even the virus, the whole aspects of the virus has become so political. There are, much ado about nothing, and it's just an annual virus, and there are people who think it's, something to be deathly afraid of. So I don't know. I'm not sure what the reality will be this fall.
Well, I know a lot of your Bay Area brethren, with, of course, Testament and Death Angel and Exodus, were over there earlier in the year, and, before anybody really knew about this virus, many of them came back, with it. I know the drummer of Death Angel was, in a coma, and, everybody survived. Gary Holt from Exodus had it, and, even Chuck Billy. But, that was before they knew really what was happening. Hopefully, like I say, they're, flattening the curve and, prepared this time. How did that come about with Ross the Boss? Was that a personal connection to him, or was that through an agent? How did that all come about?
Well, we did a couple of shows in Anaheim in January, mid-January, and we had been taken on by a management group out of New York State, and part of their network are agents who work with Ross the Boss. Our management works with Ross the Boss, and so it was natural. And there were people that work with Ross that saw us. We opened for a Metal Allegiance show during the NAMM festival, and down at the House of Blues, and it was a great show. Everybody had a good time. Some of the members of Testament, of course, were performing there. You mentioned them. But at any rate, there was some interest from those shows, and also from our management and from our public relations firm that we're working with, all tied together. And so it just seemed natural that we had been looking for a tour. We've had 2 European tours canceled on us, one because of the virus earlier, and so we've been wanting to tour Europe for several years, and so people who are working with trauma had connections to Ross. So, very, I guess, inevitable that might happen.
Well, I'm sure it will, whether it be those dates or a postponed date. I've been, following Ross and promoting and doing interviews with him since the Dictators days, and I'm in awe of how on fire that guy is. As many years he's done it, and through MANOWAR and everything, he is he's a spark plug, man. That guy will not die, and he's got the metal inside of him. So I know he's got a lot of fans over there in Europe. So when that does happen, I know you guys will be in front of some some great audiences.
Yeah, I think so. I'm really looking forward to meeting him and his band members. I know that Chris has talked to his lead singer, and we've already had some interaction at a very preliminary level. But I hear really good things about him, and like I said, very much looking forward to it. And I think you're right. That the attitude right now is, if the tour is postponed, we'll all do it at a later date together.
Yeah. Well, that sounds really strong. Well, we can't wait to hear the new material and see you guys back in Southern California and out on the stages of the world. Donnie, I know you've seen a lot. You've been through a lot. You've seen band members come and go. What little advice can you give to creative people coming up, whether they're a musician or producer or video maker or whatever? What's the mindset they got to have to survive in an industry like this?
Perseverance, stubbornness. Just if that's your driving, your internal driving force, your vision, your dream, don't quit, because you keep going, and if you have any even small level of talent, and you keep going, and you really think about what you're doing, and you know, put time into it, you develop a style, and somebody's going to like that style. And so, you know, and even trauma, take trauma, for instance. I mean, we were gone for decades, but we're all stubborn enough and you know, wanted to continue to grow musically and our careers that we've all come back to the music world and are hanging in there. So, I mean, what else? If that's what you love doing, what else are you going to do? Give up? I don't think so. That's very unsatisfying. So, that my advice is simple: keep doing it.
Well, that's it. If you do it for the love of it, you know, nobody can fire you. You know, only you as an independent can say it's over. So, you know, if you enjoy, you know, the release, you enjoy the, you know, the communication of music to music lovers, you know, it's really not, you know, anything anybody can take away from you.
That's true. You could even be a solo act, you know, a solo artist, a solo photographer, a solo you know, musician. I mean, yeah, definitely, and you mentioned, Jay, you mentioned for the love of it. Yeah, I mean, loving going to rehearsal, loving sitting by yourself and writing a song, loving, you know, every victory you have in that world, every advancement you have, collaboration. So, I mean, that's what you do. So it's kind of, that's what you do until you don't want to do it any longer, or you give up. But for people who have that drive, I don't think they really fully give up.
Yeah, well, Donnie, it's been a real pleasure. Trauma is the band. TraumaMetal.com is the website. Be looking for these guys. New music coming soon, and, you know, hopefully in a town near you coming up. Donnie, it's always a pleasure. Can't wait to see you back in Southern California.
Jay, thank you so much for inviting me to talk to you, and it's been a pleasure talking to you. I hope I get to meet you face to face.